Hello designers! Today we're going to discuss how to design your design principles flyer. The first step here is to select one of these principles from the list you see here. The options are emphasis, contrast, proportion, balance, and unity. Using a digital camera, cell phone camera, or any other device available to you, you're going to take pictures that illustrate the design principle you selected. You want to select 2 through about 3 photos of the design principle. If you select the principle of balance, for example, it needs to be obvious in your picture what the principle is. As always, you're encouraged to use natural light when you're taking your pictures. The sun is the best light bulb. You will not get credit for using images from the internet. It doesn't matter if they're copyright free. You will not get any credit if the pictures are not your own. After you collect your images, you are going to go to Adobe Spark, type in the word flyer in the search bar, and select one of these 2 template options. If you select any other templates, you will not get credit. The reason why is I need to see that you are actually editing and customizing this flyer to fit your content. So I'll show you how to begin. Here is the template I selected. All I did was type in flyer in the search bar, as I said earlier, and I looked for this template. This is the example that I created earlier while using this template for the principle of contrast. So you can see that I changed around the layout of the template a little bit so I could focus on the images that I felt were relevant to this principle. I changed the font of the word contrast to something that was interesting to me and that didn't take attention away from the definition or the captions or the images themselves. So you guys can keep it nice and simple like I did, or you guys can get a little bit more creative. The first thing that I want to do is actually change the layout of this template. To change the layout, I'm going to go to my right hand side where I have several different menu options and select layout and select one of these suggested template layout options. Now I know I have 3 images that I want to use for this particular project. So I can select this layout right here that breaks the template up into 3 frames for images on the right hand side and 1 colorful frame on the left hand side for the title and for the captions. If I had 4 images that I wanted to use, or if I generally wanted to have a more symmetrical layout, I could select, for example, this layout right here that breaks my flyer template up into 4 equal quadrants. But I think for now I'm going to select this layout option. You guys can select any layout option that is appealing to you, and I encourage you to play around and look for different options. First thing I want to do before I add my pictures is actually change the title to reflect the name of the principle I am doing. So in this case, I'm doing contrast. I'm going to click on the edit button and delete this line of text and write in contrast. Now, I don't like how the word contrast overlaps with the image, so using the tool available to me on Adobe Spark, I'm just going to rotate the title until I align it as best as I can to the images, and then I'm going to move it in place. If I feel like the title is too small for the amount of space I have in this red frame, I can definitely go ahead and use my text tools in Adobe Spark to increase the size a little more. So here you can see me increasing the size. Now I have other lines of text that I need to work on. So over here, I think I'm going to delete this line of text by pressing either the delete button on my keyboard or the trash icon here. And then I'm going to edit this last line of text by clicking the pencil icon. And this is where I'm going to include my personal definition of the principle of contrast. My definition of contrast is something along the lines of: to create contrast, designers must juxtapose, that's kind of a tough word to say, 2 different elements or objects in a design. I would prefer if you guys would write out your definition in your own words, not take something from the internet. I'm gonna select done, and then I'm gonna place my definition somewhere that I feel is gonna be able to be seen. I don't like the way that some of it was going and overlapping the image, so if I just resize this text frame, I can go and neatly fit my definition within the space that I have to my left. But obviously the way that you guys do this is gonna depend on the layout you guys selected. I feel like the definition is a little on the small side, so I'm just gonna increase the size just a little bit so it's a little more legible. If I make it too big and it overlaps with the title in any way, I can always make the title just a little smaller. But I think this looks pretty good as is. Next, I'm gonna go and start adding the images that I want. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I click on the first image that I wanna replace. I select the replace button here. And this is where I would add a photo from the internet, but you are not allowed to use internet photos for this project. So instead, I'm gonna click the arrow going left and select upload photo. I created a folder on my computer where I'm already saving the images I wanna use for this flyer showing contrast. So the first image is this image showcasing my son and his grandmother. That was added fairly well. It was not cropped off in any way that I didn't like, so I'm pretty happy with it. Next, I'm gonna click on the other image I wanna replace, follow the exact same steps. Click on the button to replace it, click on the arrow left, go to upload photo, and go ahead and upload the photo that I think demonstrates contrast somehow. One of the things I was contrasting here is the saturated color of the flowers compared to the more desaturated lake and sky. But I see that some part of this photo was cut off. So what I can do is I can click and hold down and drag the image so I can show other parts of the image that were cut off. You are not required to do this, but if you feel like your image was cut off, you have the option to move the image around freely. So next, I'm gonna do the very last image and upload the photo that demonstrates contrast to me. So click on the photo, select replace, go to upload photo, look in the folder, and then go ahead and add your image. All the images were added beautifully. The only thing that I'm noticing is that several of these images appear to be desaturated. They are not the color that I intended these images to have. If I go and click on any image and select filters, I can see that by default, a filter was applied to all these images based on the template that I selected. So for all of these images, I'm gonna select none for the filter so that the images that I use can be restored to their original colors. And that is much better. I did not like that filter that was applied to it. Now that I added the images, I can include some kind of caption stating how each image demonstrates the principle that I selected. So the first one is quite clear, old and young. So what I can do is click add right here in my right hand side, select text, and I can go ahead and add some text based on any of these styles. You guys can select something a little bit fancier, such as one of these styles using script font. But please be mindful that you don't want to compete with your main title. So my suggestion is that you guys select a text style that is a little bit more subtle and not so in your face, because this is basically for a caption. So I'm gonna go ahead and select this basic text style like they're using for ingredients here, click on it, and you'll see that it added a text box on my flyer template. if I click the pencil icon, I can change all these ingredients that it lists and put my captions. So this is going to be for my first image, which juxtaposes or compares and contrasts old and young. And I'm going to click on done, and then I'm going to place the caption to its corresponding image. I can see I was actually resizing it by mistake, so be careful so that you guys can drag it in place without resizing. All right, that looks good. Simple, to the point, and I placed the caption in an area in the photo that doesn't distract from the main subjects of the photo, which in this case are my son and his grandmother. So I'm gonna pause the video and I'm gonna repeat those exact same steps. Go to Add, select Text, select the text style that you are interested in adding, and then editing what it says to reflect the photos I selected. Now here's a problem I ran into when I was working on my captions. As I said earlier, I want to place my captions, which are just there to give some kind of explanation why I'm including these images in the flyer. But I placed my captions in a space in the image that wouldn't distract from the main subject of the image. So here you can see I placed my caption in the lake area of the image instead of on top of the flowers, so it wouldn't distract. Now, when I tried to do that here, you'll see that the image was so heavy, I tried to place it over the grass area of the image that you can't really read it. So if you have that problem, I would suggest looking for another placement. So maybe I can just go and move it next to the image here in this red frame in my flyer template, so that it doesn't distract from my image. And then because it overlaps with my explanation, I just have to go and resize other elements in my flyer. So maybe resize the title that says contrast. Maybe go ahead and resize the definition and push it up just a little bit so that I have space for all of those things that are important to me in this design. So I'm just resizing and pushing it up so they don't overlap, and now it fits perfectly. This is a very well laid out flyer template. Now, here's what I want to do to finish off my design. First of all, I want to select a color scheme that goes along with my images so that overall I have a more unified flyer. So this red right here, although it's a very beautiful color, does not have anything to do with the images I selected. One common thing in all my images is that there is a presence of green in the grass, in the leaves, and in the grass again. So maybe I want to go and from my color selection, all I did, by the way, was just click on that frame of red and I get other different colors I can add in. So I can go in and look at the color selection and try to match to a color that might go better with my design. So here I just selected a dark Kelly style green, maybe a little darker than Kelly, and that definitely goes a lot better with my design overall because it matches the green that is used in many of the photos. I can go ahead and select different shades of green until I have a match that goes a little better. I want to stay away from neon colors as much as possible because those will call my attention away from all the other work I've did elsewhere. So once I'm happy with the color I selected, I can just go ahead and move on to other elements. I can see it's now a little hard to read my explanation because it is now against a dark green background. So that's something I might want to change the color to. So I click on the explanation here, explaining what contrast is. Then I go to color and maybe I can go and change it to a white or maybe to a peach, any other color that I feel is gonna stand out. It is up to you what color you select. It is 100% your flyer. So I really like that yellow color against the green. Now I can do some final edits to my flyer before I save. I think this font that they're using for contrast is a little bit on the boring side, so maybe I want to look at some of the font families available to me here in Adobe Spark. And previously I had used a font that looked very Art Deco, and I'm interested in using it again. The font was called Monotone Regular, and I think that looks really interesting. Definitely calls my attention. Although in retrospect, now I look at it and I don't know if it's appropriate to this variation of my flyer. So I can select any other font that I feel is going to highlight the images that I included here instead of detracting from them. So I'm going to pause the video, look through these different font families and select one that I feel is going to highlight my photos and definitely call attention to the principle of contrast. Alright, I ended up selecting a font called Local Brewery 4. It's very simple, but it looks a little bit styled and kind of on the thin side, so I think it's kind of interesting to look at and it doesn't distract from anything else in the flyer. I did notice when I changed the font though, it did change the size of the writing, so I'm going to just increase the size on here until I am calling enough attention to the title that I'm happy with it. There are a few changes that I could definitely make to this flyer so far, but in order for me to not bore you guys to death so that you guys can start on your own flyer designs, I'm gonna call it a day. So when I'm happy with how my design looks, I'm gonna press the download button, and I have several different options to choose from. I am going to review these with you at a later point in time. For now, you guys are going to download in PNG format, PNG or PNG, which is a very high quality file for visual images. You guys are going to select Start Download, and this is the file that you guys will submit to me on Canvas. I cannot wait to see your work. Happy designing! Bye!